Hey guys, it's Sam. Welcome back to my channel. So I asked you guys recently on my community tab if anybody wanted to see some videos that kind of took place during my wedding planning. And so I decided to do a limited series. I already mentioned this in one video that's probably already up where I did this makeup look, which is like if I were doing my own makeup for my wedding, what might it look like? So there's gonna be like a bunch of wedding themed videos popping up here and there on my channel. And a lot of that is just because even in my search for, planning as much of my own wedding as is humanly possible, I have come across a lot of YouTube channels and videos and Facebook pages and all these things that offer a lot of advice, a lot of tips and tricks from people who have already gone through it. And I think it's very, very helpful. So I want to pass that along to anybody that might be, maybe you're planning your wedding soon. Maybe you're planning, your child's wedding. Maybe you're helping a best friend plan their wedding. Any of the above, I'm here to hopefully help out a bit. I am in no way, shape, or form an expert on this. This is not something I do for my profession. It's just something that I knew that I wanted to take on myself when it came to my own wedding. And so here we are. So you got engaged. Where do you go first? First of all, congratulations, because you have found the person that you love, that means the most to you in the world, that you want to share your life with. And guess what? They feel the same about you, or they wouldn't have asked or said yes, depending on which side you were in the proposal. Or did you just agree to it? My parents, for example, there was no big proposal. One day they just said, so should we get married? Yeah, I guess so. And they went ahead with it, and they're still married to this day. So, however you went about it, that is something to be so excited for. And I've seen this question asked a lot, especially on those Facebook groups I'm part of, where it says, I just got engaged. What's the first step? What do I do first? You know what you do? Stop. Take a step back. Get excited and be in the moment. You're engaged. For a lot of us, it only happens once, but even if it happens more than once, even if you get engaged and don't go through with the wedding, end up getting divorced because, that person was right for you at the time, but ended up not being right for you for forever. That's fine. That's, everybody has a different love story, and it's still a very exciting and emotional time. It's a time that you want to take for yourself and just enjoy being engaged. And it's a time that you want to take for your friends and your family to share it with them. So I would say that's the first thing. Just enjoy being engaged. Get excited about it. Tell your parents, tell your best friends. For us, for example, we were very adamant that we wanted all of our very close family and friends to hear about it straight from us rather than a social media post. So while we did eventually, and when I say we, I mean I eventually posted on social media that we got engaged, we waited a week to make sure that anybody that, like, our best friends, our family, heard it straight from us. And we had a hard time reaching some people because they were on vacation and this, that. But we waited because you know what? It's not going anywhere. And I know for me personally, if it was like a best friend or somebody getting engaged, I would be heartbroken if I saw it on social media before they came and just told me about it. So that was the first thing. Next thing, sit down with your future husband, wife, life partner, whatever you guys may be, and talk about your vision. What do you want for a wedding? That is the first thing you have to do, because that is kind of going to be the starting point for every other thing that you do. So do you want a really intimate gathering with only like your very close family and a couple friends? Do you want to do like a civil ceremony at a courthouse or at a town hall and then have a party back at your house? Do you want a church wedding? Do you want an outdoor wedding, an indoor wedding? Do you want to go down south and get married? Do you want to elope somewhere overseas, just the two of you, and have a party? Talk about what your ideas are for a wedding and come to either a common ground, a complete agreement, or You know, for Tom and I, for example, Tom very much wanted to do a destination wedding. He wanted to go down south and get married down there, still invite all the same people we are going to invite, knowing that not as many would show up. I didn't want that. There was never a part of me, and I feel like for a girl, we dream about our weddings a lot more than, you know, guys do. Now, having said that, like, weddings are important to everybody if you're going to go through with a marriage. So you can't totally discount your partner's opinion, even though you think that your opinion matters more. You can't. It does need to be a compromise. It just so happened that I still have elderly grandparents who are alive, and it's very important for me that they be there, and they couldn't travel down south. So Tom conceded and said, you know what? I understand where you're coming from. I'm doing this because you want this. We'll do it up here. Now, having said that, he's been involved in the process as much as he wants to be. It is more me, but I go to him for advice. So that's the first step. The second, or I guess the first step is enjoy your engagement. The second step, talk about your vision. What do you want for a wedding? The third thing, budget. Pick and agree to a budget, and also agree where to allocate parts of that budget. Tom and I never agreed on a set number. Our goal this whole time was keep it as low as possible. So we had a number in mind that we were trying not to go over, and obviously I don't know yet whether we're going to, but I think we're going to be okay. So having said that, then it's like, well, what is the most important thing to us? Maybe you're a very visual person and, you know, photography is the most important thing to you. Maybe you want those amazing memories and you're willing to spend a bigger part of your budget on photography. Maybe you're a foodie and you want that to be, you know, the main part. Maybe you're not a foodie. Maybe you don't even really want to feed your guests a full dinner. You want to do more of a ceremony and cocktail reception with no plated meal, just like hors d'oeuvres and finger foods and things like that. That's a good way to cut down on costs. Decide what your budget is and where the important parts are for you guys, because it's going to be different for everybody. For us, the places we knew the money was going to be mainly going was into a venue, food, and drinks, because Tom, even though I'm not a foodie, Tom is. Food is very, very important to him. Also, think about weddings you've been to. What do you remember from them? Do you remember, you know, the centerpieces at the tables? I know I don't. So even though I know I want my centerpieces to be beautiful, it's not an area that I'm willing to spend a ton of money in. For me, florals. I'm not a big flower girl. While I want them in terms of like bouquets and boutonnieres and things like that, I don't want them all over the tables. I don't want them all over the place in terms of decor. So for me, I know I can skimp a little more on florals because it's not something that's super important to me. It's not something I ever remember from weddings. The things that I remember are the atmosphere, you know, the DJ, how the mood was, were people dancing, were people not dancing. I'm a big, big fan of the venue. I always remember venues, like, were there lots of places for photo ops? Was it outside? Was it rustic? Was it inside and super glamorous and all of this stuff? That's important for me. So decide those places, write down a budget, and try and stick to your budget. When you're deciding on a budget, and this is a difficult thing, it depends. Do you have people helping you with your wedding? And by that I mean parents, of course. You know, it is tradition that the bride's parents do pay for the wedding. That has gone out the window a long, long time ago. That is not tradition anymore. Now it's normally like the bride and groom pay for a portion and then their parents help out. Are you completely on your own? Do you have a lot of money saved up for this? Have you been saving for this? What kind of debt are you in? What other things do you want in life? For us, Tom already has a house, so we're not like, it's not like the old days where you're kind of deciding, do we want a wedding or do we want to buy a house? We have the house, we have the cars. That's not the big deal to us, but at the same time, we don't want to go into debt for a wedding. So we're trying to keep it as low as possible, but we both do have good jobs. We make okay money. So for us, it is within our means to have sort of the wedding that we've imagined. And for you, maybe you've got this grand, great thing but maybe, you know, you already have children and you're a stay-at-home parent, or your spouse is a stay-at-home parent and you only have a one-income family. So those are things you have to unfortunately think of, because as much as a wedding is about love and a celebration of the union between two people, there is some logistics that have to be considered and that you have to be realistic about, as much as you don't want to. Even I had to come to terms with that. But I'm pretty creative and I'm pretty good at keeping a budget down. Another thing you need to decide, if you're going to be a DIY bride, and I commend everybody who thinks they want to do that, make sure it's within your realm of capabilities. For example, I make cards. I've always made cards, birthday cards, anniversary cards. So it's completely within my realm of expectation to be able to make all my own wedding stationery, my invitations, my thank you cards, my save the dates. All of that is stuff that I know I can make. I already have half the stuff to make it downstairs. I'm confident in that. I'm also confident in, you know, putting together decor. I've got a pretty good eye for some stuff like that. Now, if you don't have that, or you're not a super organized person and you're not willing to make all the phone calls and all this and that, maybe hire a wedding coordinator, a wedding planner, someone to help you out, give them their expertise and their experience and their opinions, and help guide you in the right direction, because wedding planning is stressful and it should also be fun. So if I know, for example, somebody I work with, they were trying to plan their own wedding and his fiance was just getting stressed to the nines. And eventually they just said, you know what, let's hire someone. Let's just spend the money and hire someone. And it took all the stress away. It made it so easy for them and it gave them everything they wanted. Maybe that's a route you want to go down. There's tons of options to be able to do that. Something else I will say, use the resources available to you and to us. So by that I mean YouTube. YouTube is a huge resource. You can learn how to do so much stuff. You can learn, what do we need? What are the things most people forget? What are the things that most people think you need but you don't need? There's tons of videos for that kind of stuff. There's one particular girl who is a wedding organizer that I watch. She's been great. I'll link her channel down below. Pinterest. Use Pinterest. A lot of us already have Pinterest boards before we even meet that special someone. Use that to come up with ideas. Things like Etsy and Amazon and, you know, all of these discount wedding sites. Use those to get things out of, to get ideas. Do as much on your own as you can. Just don't stress yourself out, because I will tell you that in the beginning of this, we didn't really get to enjoy our engagement, and I'll tell you why. If it were any other year and the climate in the world were any different, and by climate I don't mean the weather, I mean things with, you know, the virus and the pandemic. If it were different and it didn't exist, we would probably be getting married next year, because I feel like that's pretty standard. You get engaged one year, you try and get married within a year or a year and a half calendar date. Because of the virus and hearing all of the stories of what's going on with everybody right now who's trying to get married, especially here where they just backed the limitations off even more. So people had weddings planned where they were like, yeah, I can have 100 people outside. Now they can only have 25. How do you cut it down? I've known people who had weddings planned for this year and it's gotten canceled and pushed into next year. I don't want that. I don't want to have to worry about it. I don't want to have to wear a mask on my wedding day. I don't want my guests to have to wear a mask, to keep distance, to have no dancing. I want things to try and go back to normal. So for that reason, we knew we weren't going to be getting married in 2021. We ended up deciding on 2022. Having said that, as much as you might think, oh, 2022, you've got a lot of time. Because of what happened, because of all the weddings this year that got pushed into next year's dates are filled up. The place that we ended up deciding to go with for a venue is completely booked for next year. So that was something else to keep in mind. Also, because I'm planning on doing as much of this on my own as I possibly can, I loved the idea of giving myself all of that extra time just to get it done without the stress. It means that, you know, my invitations don't need to go out for over a year. I've got a year to make them all. My save the dates don't need to go out for pretty much a year also. I don't need to worry about making those right now. Like, I can make them. I've sort of been doing it gradually downstairs, but I don't need to. It's not a rush, if you know what I mean. So for me, I knew that we were going to be tight on finding a venue. It was going to be difficult to find exactly what I wanted and difficult to stay within the budget. I made a rule. Basically, if there was a wedding venue within an hour of where we live, I called it or emailed it and got quotes, because I made a rule really early on that I would not go and look at a venue unless the quote that they sent me fit into the budget. And weddings are expensive. For example, there was one place that I emailed that gave an estimate of $20,000 for the venue, and that didn't even include food or beverage. And that ate up over half of our budget, plus food and drink is at least another 10 to 12 grand. I wasn't about to go down that route. So the one that we ended up picking, it just, from the get-go of getting there, it was everything we wanted. It had an outdoor ceremony space with an indoor reception place. It was intimate. It was out in the, it was green. It had a lot of seating. It had this beautiful, whimsical fairy tale quality to it. And the price was right, and the people that own and run it are amazing. It was, the first place that I had seen even before we got engaged that I thought I wanted to get married at. It was the first place I emailed. It was the first place we visited, and we just both loved it. So we went with that. Before we had that, I was stressed, because what I will say to most people, before you pick a venue, you have to have your guest list numbers, because if you don't, you might fall in love with a venue that will only hold 100 people and you've got 120. Now you're screwed. So get that guest list to where it needs to be, and then start looking at venues and figure out your numbers and how many people you want there. And you can't move ahead with anything until you have a venue and a date. I didn't think I could ask my bridesmaids or, the people I hope will be my bridesmaids, to be in my wedding until I could give them a date. It's hard to ask somebody to commit to something that they don't know when it is. You can't choose a caterer until you have a place and a date, because, maybe you're getting married over here and the caterer that you booked is how far away and now they have to travel. You can't book any vendors, I don't think, until you have a venue, especially because some venues require you to use their in-house catering or in-house vendors, and others have a preferred vendors list that they want you to choose from that maybe they get deals with or they trust on their site. Those are the ones you want to use. So this video is just pretty much a generic, what I've experienced so far. I am going to be breaking videos down in the future about, selecting food, the process, selecting a venue, the process, flowers, the process, the dresses, the process, all of that stuff. This is just an overall generic thing. If you've got a specific thing you want to hear me talk about, tell me down below and I'll make sure that I make a video dedicated to just that. I'm trying not to go too high over 20 minutes with this. So that is where we are at as of right now in the wedding planning. I've got so much other stuff in my head that I am doing, but that was the big thing for me. My biggest stressor was getting a venue and getting a date, and we've got that now. So all the stress is off of my shoulders, and now I can just go ahead and plan everything with a good timeline, knowing exactly when it needs to be done with. So this is just the first of many videos I'll be putting up during this. I know it was kind of all over the place. I should have written it down. I kind of filmed it spontaneously today. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up. Like I said, comment down below anything you guys want to see in the future. If you're not already and you want to be subscribed to my channel, I'd really appreciate it. I will catch you guys next time. Bye.